Thank you, Julie, for that great introduction, and thank you, Lindsay, for founding Ladies America. I'm honored to be here today and to have been invited to speak to you. As someone who works in public policy, I love seeing so many young faces in the crowd. It tells me you all have big plans and that you want to make an impact in the world. We continue to need more leaders, and given the conference theme, Women Leading the Future, I thought I would talk to you today a little bit about leadership while building a career you love. And I should have put in that introduction, I'm a big 49ers fan, I'm a Golden State Warriors fan, I'm a Giants fan, I like the Redskins, and I like the Nets, but I'm true to my California team, so go sports. A quick show of hands for the people in the audience. How many of you have seen the movie City Slickers? Okay, a few. If you haven't seen it, it's a pretty cheesy movie, although there is one scene that has always stuck with me. Curly the cowboy is riding his horse, and he looks over at Mitch, who's a real city slicker. And he's never been outside of the city, never ridden a horse. He was kind of seeking his midlife crisis at the time in this movie, totally out of his element. Curly says to him while they're riding in the mountains, "Do you know what the secret to life is?" And Mitch looks at him and says, "No." Curly says, "One thing, just one thing. You stick to it, and the rest doesn't matter." Mitch kind of keeps riding along on the horse, and finally he looks over and he says, "Well, what's the one thing? You know, there's all this silence. What is it?" And Curly says, "Well, that's what you have to find out." It's a pretty profound statement in the middle of a slapstick comedy, and that today is going to be what my talk is all about, finding your one thing. Before I get too far, I'm going to kind of go into a little more detail on my background. I'm one of those Reagan babies, as Julie said. I grew up during the 70s and 80s when communism abroad was threatening our freedom at home. American democracy was literally hanging in the balance. There was a sense of unease, a political unrest, and a real threat abroad. Watergate, if you remember that, was shaking people's trust in government. And a few years later, the Iranian hostage crisis shook people's trust in security. My parents, whose parents were products of the Depression and World War II, saw the political turmoil that came out of the Civil Rights Movement and the Vietnam War. Their beliefs and my beliefs were defined by those times. Back then, being political was part of who you were. The Cold War, which didn't really end until 1991, hung over our heads as a continuing threat to our country. Everyone lived with one word on their mind: freedom. My generation saw freedom threatened. When your rights are threatened, you have a choice: fight for them or see them taken away. The events that happened during my youth and college years produced a generation of people who cared about the Constitution and the rights guaranteed in it. We were political because it was natural. We cared about the world events because they affected us back home. I was raised in California, went to school at UC Berkeley, which was then and remains one of the most liberal environments out there. And at the time, Ronald Reagan had just finished his first term as president and was on the campaign trail running for a second term. He was in his re-election campaign as I was graduating from college. Reagan proved that freedom transcends political parties. He defined an era, and for people like me, being a Reagan baby is so much more than being around when he was governor or president. It was a way of thinking and living. Being a Reagan baby is about a deep sense of loyalty to the principles I believed in and believed that made America the land of freedom and opportunity. Defending freedom seems like such a simple concept, but sometimes the simplest things are the most difficult. Reagan's love and enduring belief in freedom laid the foundation for our U.S. strategy during the Cold War. The Reagan Doctrine, as it was called, supported the fight for freedom around the globe in the face of Soviet communism. So when I was just starting out, I didn't really know exactly where my career would take me, but I knew what I stood for. I wanted to protect that freedom. I was inherently political, and I was eager to get involved. I knew I could make a difference, and when I graduated from Berkeley, I worked and I headed to DC to work for Reagan's re-election. having never met him. I just got on a plane a week after graduation and thought, I'll figure it out when I get there. I didn't know at the time, but I was building the foundation for a long career in politics. I was making decisions based on my passion, my one thing, and opening doors to new opportunities. That's the thing about life. You have the ability to choose your career and the way you want to live it. Find the one thing that drives you and use it to guide your decisions. I believed in freedom, and every job I took ended up aligning with that belief and protecting it. I left the RNC, got married, and moved to New York City. As Julie said, I took a job with National Review, the magazine, and I ended up founding the National Review Institute, which was kind of the C3 side of the magazine to kind of promote the same ideas. Some of you may be familiar with National Review. Hopefully, most of you have heard of William F. Buckley. It was there that I was able to work with some of the greatest thinkers in the conservative movement. And from there, I went on to take the position at GOPAC, a group that helps conservatives get elected to state houses. After a few years at GOPAC, in 1994, we won the majority of Congress for the first time in 40 years. Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, who was my boss, asked me to come and work for him, as Julie mentioned. If you haven't heard about the contract with America, it's kind of an interesting concept. What Newt did was he took polls around the country before the election and before the campaign and asked questions around issues that were motivating Americans on all sides of the aisle. He did it through the Reader's Digest, if you can believe it. I don't know if anyone still reads the Reader's Digest anymore, but that's how we did it in 1993. And we took issues that all polled 78% or higher. That's how we came up with the contract with America. Not sure that the press would actually tell that story, but that's how we came up with it. We developed the contract with America, had these issues, and it really kind of galvanized for the first time in Congress a national campaign. So it was a really interesting concept, and I think politically ended up changing the course of this town for a little while. Looking back now, I found a way to turn my passion into a career. Knowing my passion helped everything else fall into place. I was able to make decisions with more clarity. Now, as women, we often feel we have to make a choice between career and family. When I worked for Newt, I took the job just as my family was starting to grow. In fact, I was pregnant during the campaign, climbing onto private planes and kind of trying to go to events. I told the speaker I could only work till 11 o'clock one night a week. Everyone else was working every night of the week. But I had my priorities and my family came first. My passion guided my career choice, but my new family prioritized my life choices. As I have said, my passion was freedom, but once I started a family, they became the reason I fought for that. Rather than having to choose between a career path and family, I decided long ago they were two sides of the same coin. I would involve my family in politics, and my political contacts became my lifelong friends. This isn't a political statement, rather just a deeply investing yourself in your chosen profession and world. The same can be said about any profession. Architects, doctors, lawyers, the people you work with every day become a part of your world. Who says you have to choose between family and career? If you don't like the playing field, change the goalposts. Understanding your priorities will help you go from good to great in your life. Too many times we're afraid to ask for what we want. Knowing your passion will help you prioritize your decisions and actions. Ask for that raise. Ask for the title change. Ask for the flexibility. Don't be afraid to go out there and ask for what you want. Be ambitious. Be smart about your decisions. When you ask for those things, know why you want them and explain them to your boss. Every decision you make should be in line with your priorities. Nothing is more exhilarating and empowering than making a decision that you know is right. Looking out into the audience, I'm guessing some of you, maybe not all of you, are just starting out in your careers. Perhaps you're a few years in. Maybe you don't have a passion yet. Today, I would say this: take some time, sit down, and figure out what drives you. What inspires you? Soul searching can be a powerful tool. Too often, I think people fail to reflect on what motivates them. I think identifying your passions will help you get ahead in your life and your career. Once you identify that passion, you'll find your decisions become easier to make. For those of you who play a sport, maybe an instrument, this concept is something you learn early on. I'm a golfer. I've played for a while now. One of the best pieces of advice I received was from a friend when I was just starting out and a little bit nervous out on the golf course. She said, "Lisa, envision where you want the ball to go." Your mind doesn't know the difference between a good and bad thought. So if you think to yourself, "Don't hit it in the sand, don't hit it in the sand, don't hit it in the sand," all your mind is going to hear is sand. Because your mind is so focused on the sand, you're more likely to hit it in the sand and not get it to the fairway. So envision where you want the ball to go. Envision where you want to go. Think about that for a second. What you focus on can change the course of your life. Make it your job to focus only on the things that are important to you. You will notice that when you change your focus, a funny thing happens. You start to feel optimistic. Optimism seems like an outdated concept right now. Let me tell you a secret. The happiest people in life are usually the most optimistic, or the most successful. And they're successful because they're happy. Have you ever noticed how happy people are all surrounded by other happy people? That's not an accident. Happiness is contagious. And successful people know this. One of the keys to getting the most out of your career and life is to build a happiness network of your own. By this, I mean build networks of people that support you, like Lindsay has done here, who believe in you, who advocate for you, who you can lean on during bad times, and who celebrate with you during the good times. This is a friend group or just a group of people who work in your profession. Find commonalities and tap into the natural female abilities to create relationships with people. The friends you make and the groups you create along your career path are just as important as your career itself. Over time, these relationships form your network, a network that supports you, and you will find that your network opened doors that you wouldn't have ever known existed. Now, I'm not talking about using people. I'm talking about developing deep relationships with people you support and who in turn support you. Chances are high your closest friends and colleagues probably share a lot in common with you. Those people are the ones who understand you best and who are able to help you when you need it, just as you would help them when they need it. I am a strong believer in these support systems, and my personal life and career are a testament to my belief in those networks. Personally, I belong to a few close-knit groups, like the dinner group, that get together regularly. We have a method of discussing topics such as sitch or ish. And we kind of sit around and say, is that a sitch or an ish? Well, a situation versus an issue. Are you going through a situation that requires quick action? Or are you actually facing an issue that needs a more involved game plan? If you sit down with your girlfriends and you say, "Oh, I'm really mad at my husband because he did this," or "my boyfriend because he did this," well, is that a sitch or an ish? And it really simplifies. You're going to laugh later because I think you're going to talk about it. We do. Both approaches are about taking action and moving forward. Both are about being proactive and taking control of your life. It's not about experiencing your life. It's about directing and calibrating it. The critical piece is figuring out which is which. Don't make a situation an issue. My support networks help me through tough decisions over the years. Their advice has guided me through tough times. As young professionals, I encourage you all to build your support networks. Whether you find a mentor or a group of women, lay the foundation for lasting relationships that you can lean on. In the same vein, it's important to be supportive of your friends and peers. Remember, we are all in this together. Build your network and shared passions and watch your work life slowly turn into something you enjoy doing every day. I believe so strongly in building networks that I found a way to do it professionally. When I look back at my career, I see common themes. When I was working with Newt in the speaker's office, he was really interested in technology. I grew up in Palo Alto, California. I went to Berkeley. I knew a little bit about it. We started the High-Tech Task Force. It still lives today. It's a bipartisan network of members of Congress who are interested in learning about technologies and looking forward and new ways of doing things. When I was at Visa and AOL, I was a member of a group called the Business Government Relations Council. It's a whole group of people, men and women, who sat together and just kind of worked on best practices in their profession and in the kind of lobbying and government relations sphere. So currently, as the CEO of the American Legislative Exchange Council, otherwise known as ALEC, I get to go to work every day to grow that network of people who believe in freedom. In case you're not familiar with ALEC, we're the largest association of free market-oriented state legislators in America. We're nonpartisan. Our members are passionate about freedom and work together to develop free market solutions to issues facing the states. We believe government should be more efficient, more effective, and more accountable to the taxpayers. And we have nearly 800 pieces of model policy that we have developed that serve as guides for the policymakers around the states looking to make government work better for you. You know, after I've been at ALEC for about a year, my kids, Sam and Britt, they're 24 and 21 right now, asked me one day, "Mom, what do you do at ALEC?" And I paused for a moment, and I said, you know, I think my job is to defend the Constitution. It's a strange answer for someone who goes to work every day and, you know, gives speeches and works with legislators, but I really thought hard about that, and I thought, I think that's what I do at the end of the day. Sam and Britt's question brought things full circle for me. I knew that I had always followed my passion, but it took a career's worth of perspective to connect that passion to a higher calling. My calling from cradle to grave, and perhaps the calling of many Americans, is to protect this country and to defend our Constitution and what it stands for. Today, my world is filled with people, legislators, business leaders, nonprofit advocates, scholars, journalists, and policy wonks who feel the same way that I do. I wake up every day and say, I get to go to work today. The people in my life have all found a way to turn a simple concept into promoting freedom and defending the Constitution. That turns into the lasting, lifelong career path, an impactful career. And that, ladies, is what I challenge you to do. It will happen slowly, but if you are patient and you deliberately create a world that supports your passion, you will find that your work will become your life. And I can't imagine anything more fulfilling than waking up and doing what you love. Before I close, I want to leave you with one thing. Not the one thing that Curly talked about, a couple of other things. If you take anything away from today, remember this. Many of you are here today because you already are natural leaders. I'm willing to bet many of you will be leaders of industry, social service, of our country. And as women, I encourage you to build your networks now, early on in your lives, because it will make all the difference. Just this past year, in fact, ALEC took on an initiative to strengthen our network of women legislators, because being a woman leader is hard. Did you know that when a man is asked to run for office, he says yes on the first ask? Studies have shown that for a woman, it takes somebody to ask her to run 8 times before she will say yes. Women have to prove they're a viable candidate, first to themselves and then to the audience, whereas men are most trusted and immediately out of the gate. Further, most people associate women with specific issues, such as education or healthcare. In the ALEC Women's Legislative Caucus, all issues are women's issues. There is no reason why a woman can't be a leader on tax reform or energy, such as Sarah Tides back in the back. In fact, I am proud to say that the current ALEC national chair is a woman, State Senator Leah Vukmir from Wisconsin. And the last 2 out of 3 national chairs that I've worked for have been women. I'm a firm believer in supporting women who believe in freedom, and I've made it my goal to build and support networks that put strong women into leadership positions. I personally sit on the board of a PAC that helps women get elected to Congress. You know, right now, women make up only 20% of Congress and hold only 6 governorships. And yet in 2012, 10 million more women voted than men. Women are naturally engaged, and whether it be in our personal lives or our career, the data shows that we are good at building networks, good at supporting each other, and good at voicing our opinions and getting involved. Think of your life as one important campaign. I mean it. Identify that one thing and make it your platform. Use your platform, your passion, to guide you in all that you say and do. Build networks around you who support you. Treat your life as if it's the most important campaign in the world, because you know what? It is. The best thing is that you're only running against yourself. So there is no limit to what you can accomplish. Thank you very much.